Is birth the first migration? We are going to contextualize migration from a psychoanalytical perspective. As we know, migrants go through several stages in the migratory process. First, the intense pain for what is left behind, sorrow for the lost world and nostalgia. And then the migrant rediscovers the pleasure of thinking and wanting and recovers the ability to plan for the future. We need to talk about identity first in trying to understand the process of migration. Let's look at this definition of identity. According to a psychoanalytical dictionary, the primary identity is related to the early process of self and differentiation, where the individual has to distinguish his identity from that of his object, in this case, the mother or parents. The secondary identification is part of further self-development, which is the process of identifying with an object, that is parents, whose separate identity has already been discovered. Due to early traumas, parts of self, I am referring to the primary identity, are split and disowned, and they need to be rewound so the person is more integrated. The migrant who was neglected in his own country will split his identity with the mother object country and process new allegiances to the host country or object. If the migrant tries to disown large parts of himself and then tries to put on top of such a fragmented self another cultural identity or image, this will lead to a false sense of security. With the loss of a holding culture, the migration becomes a new trauma and a threat to early fragile sense of identity. The melancholia that was described by Freud is also applied in the migration process. This is particularly relevant to the difficulties in the adjustment and integration process for migrants. People cannot mourn the losses associated to the migration because they cannot blend in the new culture. Greenberg in 1989 noted that using migration as a metaphor, human development itself can be seen as a succession of migrations, through which one moves farther and farther from his first object. Birth is the first migration in the life of every individual. To leave the womb and lose the continuous and unconditional supply of food via the umbilical cord is a traumatic and persecutory experience for the infant. All human beings have universal fantasies and desires to psychological and physically migrate from the mother's body, mind and heart, and migrate beyond known limits in search of freedom, knowledge, and liberation. In early infants, the mother serves as a good container. The baby will feel greater inner freedom to choose between staying and migrating. If the mother has failed in being a good container, the child may feel compelled to stick it out in submission to a maternal object, or else will try compulsively to travel from one place to another. This way that search of idealized maternal objects. We can say, if the mother was not a good enough supportive figure and container, and the real father was not there to modify the situation, that this may result in the future illusionary search for new ideal containers and a manic psychological and physical migration as a way of escaping from the persecutory mother. On the other hand, a deprived child and future deprived migrant may be compelled to cling to the old world and its subjects. The migrant leaving his native country symbolically the womb, needs to come into contact in the new world with the caring others that will hold him and contain him. If this is inadequate or missing, one may suffer an emotional breakdown. The wish to migrate to a better place, represented by the host country, is a wish to start over and go through the process of being reborn. On the other hand, migration can be also a way to escape from an unbearable internal world called mother and absent father. Some people become a manic migrant in constant search of exciting objects and experiences, and they use migration as an escape from the internal demons and tormented dreams and feelings. Migration, consequently, will precipitate different modalities of anxiety. Migrants will experience separation anxiety, persecutory anxieties, when faced with a new and foreign, depression linked to challenging the old values and loyalties. Do I belong to this new object or preserve my old primary object? The ideal of leaving original country may also be precipitated by the wish to escape persecution, real or fantasized. As a consequence, the new migrant will experience regression, as feeling initially unable to manage anxieties and uncertainties of a new environment. Obviously, everyone migrating will experience anxieties, but they are going to be different in intensity and will change as the migrant settles in the new culture. And the new identity of the migrant is achieved when the ego internalizes objects instead of a manic projective identifications. Therapies from a psychoanalytical perspective should include race and ethnicity as important elements influencing the therapeutic process. Race and ethnicity will influence intrapsychic functioning in the migrant attending psychotherapy. They are going to be expressed in the transference and countertransference. Migrant construction of the therapist's racial characteristics is critical in the analytical process for the therapist to respond. Thank you.